The night the rain flooded the glass streets of Manhattan, a man who owned half the skyline realized he no longer trusted his own heart. Power, money, and applause had taught him how to build towers, but they had not taught him how to recognize love when it stood quietly in front of him. That night, standing alone in a penthouse glowing like a crown above the city, he decided to run one final test, one that would reveal more than balance sheets ever could. Before the story pulls you deeper, pause for a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of doing the right thing when no one is watching, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Arden Cross had earned his fortune before turning 40, rising from a scholarship student with borrowed suits to a man whose signature could move markets. The world knew him as disciplined, calculating, and untouchable. What the world did not know was how tired he had become of being admired for what he owned instead of who he was. That exhaustion had cost him his engagement, shattered in public headlines that framed the split as mutual, but hid the truth of quiet disappointments and bruised trust. The woman he had once planned to marry had loved the doors his name opened, the gala lights, the invitations embossed with gold. When the pressure mounted and the patience ran out, affection had turned transactional, and the ring had come off with a polite smile. In the aftermath, Arden retreated inward, turning his life into a schedule so precise it left no room for regret. It was during this period that a small but steady presence entered his days, barely noticed at first. The nanny he hired for his young niece, whom he had taken guardianship of after a family tragedy, arrived early, left late, and treated the penthouse not like a palace, but like a home that needed warmth. Her name was Ilara Finch, and she carried herself with the kind of gentleness that came from knowing hardship without wearing it like a badge. Ilara had grown up counting coins at the grocery counter and learning to stretch leftovers into hope. She never asked questions about Arden's wealth, never lingered near the art or the view, and never tried to be seen. She noticed details instead. The way his niece slept better after stories. The way Arden drank his coffee cold while staring at nothing. The way loneliness could exist even in rooms with ceilings higher than most people's dreams. Her work was quiet, competent, and full of care, and it slowly changed the rhythm of the apartment. Weeks turned into months. Arden watched from the edges of his own life, noticing how Ilara's presence softened corners he had forgotten were sharp. At the same time, his ex-fiancée, Seraphine Vale, drifted back into his orbit with apologies polished like mirrors. She spoke of growth, of mistakes, of timing. She appeared at charity events with the same effortless elegance that had once captivated him, and the world nodded approvingly at the possibility of reconciliation. Arden felt the old pull of familiarity and status mixed with the ache of not wanting to be alone. Conflicted and wary, Arden devised a test he believed would bring clarity. It was not born of cruelty, but of fear. Fear of choosing wrong again. He arranged a weekend charity initiative disguised as a personal errand, one that would require trust. 2 identical black cards were placed in slim envelopes, their limits effectively infinite. One went to Seraphine, offered with a reminder that he needed help sourcing items for a donor dinner and covering unforeseen costs. The other went to Ilara, handed with an explanation that his niece's school needed supplies for an outreach program and that logistics might be complicated. No instructions beyond that, no oversight, just faith placed in plastic and silence. The city moved as it always did, loud and indifferent. Seraphine took the card like a promise renewed. She moved through boutiques and restaurants where the lighting made everything feel important. She told herself she deserved ease after years of standing beside ambition. The purchases came quickly, justified as networking necessities and presentation. A dress that would make headlines, jewelry that would photograph well, a suite booked to host influential acquaintances. Each receipt felt like momentum, like proof that she still belonged in the life Arden represented. Elara took the card with visible hesitation, treating it like a fragile thing. She spent hours planning before spending $1, calling schools, checking lists, asking questions. She found a supplier willing to donate part of the materials if she covered transport. She paid for books, art supplies, winter coats, and meals for families who would otherwise go without during the program. She arranged volunteers, booked a modest bus, and used the rest of the funds to set up a small emergency reserve for the school nurse. Every decision was guided by need, not appearance, and by the understanding that money was a tool, not a trophy. When the weekend ended, Arden sat alone at his desk, the city glowing beneath him. Reports arrived without commentary, numbers lined up in neat columns, and the story they told was undeniable. One card had burned bright and fast, leaving a trail of indulgence disguised as purpose. The other had moved quietly, multiplying value through restraint and care. Arden felt a pressure in his chest he had not expected, a tightening that rose to his throat. He thought of the way Elara had once repaired a broken toy instead of replacing it, of how she listened more than she spoke, of how she had never asked him for anything at all. The donor dinner took place in a hall dressed to impress, yet the true impact arrived earlier that day at a small school gymnasium filled with laughter and coats zipped too big for growing bodies. Arden attended both, moving from polished smiles to sticky fingers and hand-drawn thank you notes. At the school, he saw what his money could become when guided by humility. At the dinner, he saw how easily generosity could be confused with spectacle. The contrast hollowed him out and filled him up at the same time. Seraphine sensed the shift before it was named. The conversations grew cooler, the glances shorter. She spoke of plans and futures, but the words fell into a space that no longer echoed. Arden realized that love built on access would always ask for more and offer less. He felt no anger, only a tired acceptance that some chapters end not with villains, but with clarity. Elara never mentioned the card again. She returned it without ceremony, along with a folder of receipts and handwritten notes explaining each choice. She apologized for any inconvenience caused by delays, and thanked Arden for trusting her. In that moment, he almost cried, not from sadness, but from the relief of recognizing goodness without having to bargain for it. The world had taught him to test everything. Elara had shown him that some things simply reveal themselves. As days passed, Arden began to change the way he moved through his own life. He listened more. He simplified. He redirected resources toward programs that valued impact over applause. He found himself lingering in the kitchen while Elara prepared meals for his niece, feeling the warmth of ordinary moments he had once dismissed as small. There was no grand confession, no dramatic turning point, just a steady alignment of values, like a compass finally finding north. Near the end of this story, if it has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach the people who need them most. And before the final lines, here is a special request just for you. Comment the word kindness below if you believe true character is revealed not by how much we have, but by how we choose to use it. Arden never announced a winner, because the lesson was never about comparison. It was about seeing clearly. In the quiet that followed, he understood that wealth could test people, but it could also test the one who held it. That night, as the city lights dimmed into something softer, Arden stood by the window and felt gratitude instead of suspicion. He had almost cried not because he had lost anything, but because he had finally found what could not be bought.